What is up, everyone? Welcome to my second vlog in my series Developing New Worlds with me, Matthew Sterneman, where I walk you through my journey through the class Developing New Worlds at Full Sail University, where I am taking a story that I have and creating a world for it. If you didn't watch week 1, I will put the link below, and that's where I kind of give the basic premise of the world and where I started. This week was focused on the research, where I got all of it together, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that process. Before I do, though, I thought of something after I did last week's vlog. So I talked about this from the perspective of a creative writer, because of course that's what I am. I'm a writer. I'm going to be writing a story. Now, there are other people who may be watching this vlog who are not writers, right? But who may still be interested in creating a world, who may be interested in developing a world. For instance, I have a friend named Joe who watched last week's vlog and commented on it on my Facebook page, and that got me thinking. Joe likes D&D, Dungeons & Dragons. This method can work perfectly for that. Now, Dungeons & Dragons, at its heart, is a game about story. Right? You have someone, the dungeon master, who sits at the head of a table and helps usher his or her friends through this world. But I know a lot of DMs who like to create their own world. There's no reason why they couldn't use this type of method to create that world. So what method am I talking about? Well, let me go through the process pretty quick, or relatively quick. What I wanted to do is get all of my research categories, together. Now, for the class, what we needed to do was have 6 research categories and 5 sources under each of those categories. 2 of the sources being from the internet, 2 of the sources being hard copy, and then an image or video source. Now, of course, I could go above and beyond that if I wish, and I only have those requirements because I'm in a class. Obviously, if you were doing this on your own, not as part of a class, you wouldn't necessarily need these requirements. Research as much as you want or as little as you need, I suppose, but really there's no such thing as too much research. So what was the first thing I did? You heard me mention categories. How did I find those categories? I did it old school. Took a notebook and a pen and I got to writing. And that's really what you want to do. You don't necessarily need to use the notebook and the pen. You, of course, can jump on the computer and do it in a WordPad, Notepad, whatever. But all you need to do is just start jotting down keywords, right? For those of you who may not be familiar with my story premise, we're in space, we're in another universe. There's a guy in a spaceship. He's got a guitar owned by Jimi Hendrix. He starts playing. He rediscovers music in this world that music has essentially been eliminated from history, right? Right there's a lot of keywords that I just mentioned. Music, Jimi Hendrix, spaceship, guitar, travel. What do you need to know about this world, okay? You'll have a list of maybe 30 or more different words. Well, that's when you start taking them and start looking for trends. Start figuring out what groups of words can be put under one category or one heading, right? So, music, Jimi Hendrix, guitar, right? Those are ones that I just mentioned in my quick little premise there. But there are also others that kind of go with that. Genre, style. These are all things I can put under the music category. So that I think, okay, well, what would I call that? I'm just musical influence, right? The impact that music can have on this world, because I know that is a part of my story, right? So right there, I have a research category, musical influence. Awesome. So then I needed more categories. So I started thinking, well, I've got a trader character, right? And that's a big part of this world. The economy of trade. What do I know about that? Not very much, right? I go to Starbucks and I pay with my app. That's as much as I know about how money works. And of course, I pay my bills online. I am certainly not an accountant. I don't understand the ins and outs of a free market economy, things like that. So I need to research that a little bit. What about space travel? Now, this is a fictional world. We're in another universe. But it needs to be authentic. And authenticity is a big thing for me, right? I want my stories to feel a little bit grounded, right? For a reader to accept these fantastic ideas that I'm throwing at them, I need to have a little bit of reality in there, a little bit of a few believable elements at least. Or at least have them, the foundations be believable. So space travel, I needed to understand that. So I got to cults and communities. I talked a little bit last week about the group that is on the main planet. A lot of people view them as a cult, but really not. They're a self-sustaining community. So I sort of group those together, right? Because they're viewed in both ways, and the reader won't necessarily know which one they are until a little bit later in the story, and they may still have doubts about that, right? They may not be something that's ever fully revealed in the story, mainly because of the leader. That brings me to the other category, right? I talked about the old lord, the person who reigned over this galaxy for so long and made this world the way it is. I needed to find out about dictators, right? There's so many dictators out there, types of dictatorships, types of government, and I didn't want to base it off of one thing or one person. I really wanted to make it sort of a mishmash and make a truly unique character. So I definitely needed to research that. So I was absolutely a category. And then I had my final category in there, which was weaponry and gunsmiths. I have an idea that I'm really excited about and that I've been really developing in my mind for the last week or so, for a group of characters that our adventurers will meet in the story, and they're gunsmiths, which is a lost art. And that's something I definitely need to do some research on, because I have no idea how a gun is made either. You pull the trigger, a bullet shoots out. I don't know what's going on in there, so I needed to find out. So I had my 6 categories. So then I got to looking. Now, give you some quick tips here, right? Google is your best friend. You really need to learn how to use Google, though. There's a lot of stuff out there. If you have to search for, say, when I was searching for dictators, right? Hitler was everywhere. I really had to filter through Hitler. I feel like I'm not going to say I'm a Hitler expert, of course, right? But there are 1,000,001 different documentaries out there and books, and he is essentially, or I should say, he's certainly the one who gets the most attention out there. I wanted to find out about the others, so I started really kind of focusing my search a little bit more, looking for modern dictators. I started looking for the different types of governments out there. So when you're doing your Google searches, finding those, you really want to kind of pinpoint what you're looking for. Hard copy sources, of course. Library databases are your friends. I hope that there's never a time in this world where there are no such thing as libraries. Go to a library. If you haven't been to a library, go to a library. Support your local libraries. They're fabulous. Just a wealth of knowledge under one roof. So those are the main tools I used: internet search engines and library databases to get most of my work. Now, of course, there is different levels of quality in the sources you're going to find. Not every page I found was very informative about certain topics. Others I found were almost too informative and wrote at a very high level, which I didn't quite understand. So I had to find what worked for me, so I could really get that information out of it. I wanted useful sources, right? I wanted to make the research fun. I wanted to read about this. I wanted to learn about this. So I really put in the time to find it. So I suggest you do the same. Don't get discouraged if you're having trouble finding some good sources. They're out there, trust me. So I've got them together. I'm really excited. I talked again, a little bit last week about how the research can sort of help shape my idea of the story, how I thought of things during that research that I hadn't thought of before. I just touched the surface last week. Some of the continued research I did this week, wow, it completely changed my mind about a few things. I completely developed a few new ideas. I found a book about Jimi Hendrix's gear. Perfect find for this, right? Beautiful book, and it's not just the guitars, right? And this is where my mind opened up a little bit. It's about the amplifiers and the other gear he used, and I'm not sold on introducing some more of that yet, on some more of the gear. Right now it's really just the guitar and the pick, but it did give me a few ideas that I might play around with a little bit, where you may need to make an amplifier. I found this fascinating book in the library database. It was about how a lot of the dictators of the past, Saddam Hussein, Hitler, had this fascination with black magic, with voodoo and the paranormal. Awesome read. I looked through that, really dug it. I think everyone should check it out who might be interested in that. And I knew that I wanted, this villain in my book to dabble in that, or to have a connection with that power. And this really opened up my eyes to some crazy stuff, and definitely gave me a few ideas for that. And I found some interesting reading on the effects of long-term space travel and why it's so hard to survive, say, a trip to Mars. Even though they've obviously mastered that in my world, I still want that to be something that they overcome. How did they overcome that? And reading that helped me understand, what challenges that my characters need to overcome. So those are some of the best sources that I found there. So I found some really cool research. I've got it all together, and next week I'm going to be working on the story Bible, which I am very, very excited about. It's going to be a lot of work, and I can't wait to talk about that next week. So please tune in next week. Find the video here on the same channel, and thank you all for watching. Bye.